Okay, here we go. When I was young, I was raised by a lion, heart made of cast iron. I was raised with the tigers. He had a walk like a paperclip, a heart like a silly band that bounced on these city corners like graffiti prostitutes, and she had eyes like smooth baby ankles and a neck like an anorexic heartbeat. Tell that to the man on the corner with no arms and tell him shake.
Wait, what?
Philadelphia Youth Poetry Movement is a nonprofit organization that was established in 2006. It's dedicated to provide a safe space where young people can critically think, creatively think, learn performance poetry, page poetry, and at the same time build relationships and build family and all types of friendships that come out of this.
And not just about poems, just, making friends, discussing stories, relating to one another, and it's just like basically a place to leave yourself, to get free.
Paperclipping is the act of using a nonsensical line or having a nonsensical poem or writing a poem that's completely nonsensical.
You may hear a poem where somebody says, yeah, the deserts of our eyes were empty for 5,000 forbidden forevers. And you're like, what? It doesn't make sense.
It's the satirical act of kind of playing along with that and making up your own nonsensical metaphors and meanings and allusions and references in poetry to make it sound deep when it actually means nothing.
Like basically they're telling me it was like nonsense poetry. I'm like, nonsense poetry? How is poetry nonsense? And then I ended up looking at a YouTube video of Jamar Hall, I think it was at DC, spitting paperclipping.
There's a poet in our program named Jamar Hall.
Jamar Hall,
who's a poet, an actor, an MC, a songwriter. I remember the first time I met him, he's one of those people that's beyond talented.
I made the non-believers believe that when my back against the ropes, I still bob and I weave, throwing hooks at my dreams, but I ain't catching no Z's. Can't keep on waiting, got them pacing, losing patience for me. I ain't no doctor, but I know I'm who they waiting to see. Sleep is not an option when I need to make a profit, and even when I be dreaming, I be thinking that I'm conscious.
I was new to poetry, and I was sitting a lot of poetry venues, and I would hear poets get up and certain things they would say, certain metaphors and lines had nothing to do with, something they either compared it to.
You'd hear poets who would say, some stuff that sounds real deep, but in actuality, like, yo, what does that mean?
I used to sit there and I used to look at these poets, the moon shined like 2 light bulbs at night when the light switch stayed off. And I would just go, okay, that don't make sense, because if the light was never on, how could you see the light bulb shine in the first place?
It became really popular and to just not make any sense, and no one was getting called out on it.
And in that space, Jamar was like, man, it's gotta be something for that. So he created this thing called paperclipping.
The first night I performed my paperclipping poem at the youth night, it was weird.
We spent about the first minute and a half of the poem making nonsensical metaphors to kind of make fun of the way poets will throw some words together.
For the first half of that poem, I had everyone reacting like, yeah, man, that was, some really deep lines. But then when the transition occurred, the line where I said,
attention poets, it makes no sense to create nonsense to please an audience. Tell your story. Make those judges believe that even when they doubt your pen, your page always knows who's right. So write like this was the 1700s and you didn't have any. Write for the times when they called you crazy and suggested that before therapy, try poetry. Tell your story.
That's when people went crazy. They were just like, oh, I knew I didn't get it the first time you said it.
It was like such a funny thing that we would always ask him to do the poem. And then Victor and Kai and He started going along and having their versions of it. Alana would have her version of it. Everybody always wanted to hear somebody Paperclip.
Our kids are pretty outgoing, and when they went to Brave New Voices in 2011, they started these ciphers, and they were just saying a bunch of nonsense poems together, and the other teams liked it.
And then from there, we started having paper clipping slams with a lot of the other poets.
It takes off naturally and very organically like that. Something Philly homegrown is now shared with the world, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
I really feel proud to be the creator, the founder, the innovator, the originator, the architect of paper clipping. When you walk around PYPM and you hear other kids just continuing to do something you started, it's almost like you pass the torch in some sort of way, like your legacy is now being carried on. They will know where it comes from, and they will know what it means to make sense, what it means to tell your story. You know, don't distract yourself with, you know, trying to sound like him or trying to sound like her, because at the end of the day, we want to know what you sound like.
PYPM, AKA Pen Goons, AKA Bars for Days, presents the 2014 Paperclip Cypher.
She had eyes. She had eyes like two missed bullets. We danced like broomsticks on replay and rewind. I rewinded her smile till it stretched in front of me like the Canada skyline. Where is Canada anyway? She had a heart like an empty Pringles can.
I once saw a smile walking down the street. It looked like LeBron James and it dunked on my frown. I was like, yo, Dwayne Wade knees is decapitated, so they ain't winning this year. Indiana Pacer, hater, deflate ya, make ya get a machine gun and start shooting at shooting stars like they gonna shoot back. Man, I had Jesus looking at me like, did he say that? Amen.
Pratt. That's my name. Why do we have names? Why can't we have claps? Stop!
I don't listen to Drake. I just go in my Marvin's room and tell him to take care while I listen to Nothing Was the Same, cause nothing was the same ever since Kendrick dropped Control. I can't control my bars. Willy Wonka.
Philly Youth Poetry Movement. Dopeness from the ceiling to the floor paint. Paper clipping courtesy of us. Dashikis and war paint.
Listen, Greg about to do an interview, and you know, every time Greg stutters, a puppy is slain. So he gotta focus.
What?
Got him.
Because only you can tell your story. We all are listening, tell your story. Because if you don't, then my mama also had a knife that can cut you. Tell your story or else.
This is starting to make too much sense. I'm out.